Hey, everybody. It is Tuesday, May 6th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Nunu.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. As per our Jason Derulo conversation on yesterday's podcast, Jill, we haven't come up with like a tune to say our names. Like, Mo Shwanunu, Mo News Podcast. You're listening to us. It's a work in progress, everyone. Much more importantly than all of that, it's a couple big weeks. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. It's actually today's Teacher Appreciation Day of the Teacher Appreciation Week. It is also National Nurses Week, coinciding here with Teacher Appreciation Week. So we just want to note to all of you in the teaching profession, whether in public schools, private schools, charter schools, home schools, as well as all of you nursing professionals out there. We are very grateful to all of you.
They deserve their own week.
There's only
right?
52 weeks in a year, and I guess, I don't know, I understand that the National Nurses Day is because it's the week of Florence Nightingale's birthday, so I guess that's how they timed it. I don't know what led this week to be Teacher Appreciation Week, but I agree. I mean, everyone should have their own week, but it appears you guys have overlapping weeks, and I hope that everyone is appreciating you. I do know that there's discounts available, so if you're a nurse or a teacher, if you Google discounts, I think like Smoothie King, Chipotle, there's a bunch of brands out there that want to, give you discounts or free stuff this week. So take advantage of it, because I know we don't pay you nearly enough.
Two of probably the most important professions. That's why I'm saying give them their own week. They deserve it.
Right.
And they're in many ways, they're thankless professions.
Right. You get all the stress. We come to you most in need, whether it's our children in the case of teachers or ourselves in the case of nurses. And so we are grateful to all of you. You guys don't get enough appreciation.
As you know, I come from a family of teachers, my mother, my aunts. So
show them your appreciation this week leading up to Mother's Day, Jill.
Every day.
Every day.
I do.
You appreciate them every day.
And as a mother who has a daughter and a son who are in the hands of very good teachers, it makes a huge difference in their lives. So thank you to all the teachers out there. We appreciate it. And with that, let's get to some headlines. Those flight delays at Newark Airport not getting any better. And there's a new change for travelers this week that could add to the misery at airports across the country. Overseas, the Israeli government votes to expand its military operations in Gaza and occupy most of the territory, displacing the population again. Why is Israel threatening to escalate, and what does it mean for the hostages and more than 1 million displaced Palestinians? Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial got underway Monday. What potential jurors are being grilled on? The White House walks back President Trump's announcement on tariffs for foreign-made films.
Yeah, we'll explain what he's proposing, where the White House is, and where this could all land.
And the president says he wants to reopen the infamous Alcatraz prison more than 6 decades after it became a museum. Why it closed, and can he really reopen it?
Unlikely, Jill, but we will discuss Alcatraz, The Rock, on today's podcast. Jill, I can't think about Alcatraz without thinking about the movie from the 90s with Sean Connery. R.I.P. Sean Connery. The Rock. Welcome to The Rock.
I went on a tour of Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's what it's known for these days. Tours.
The education department has started to put millions of defaulted student loan borrowers into collections as of today, threatening to confiscate their wages, tax refunds, and federal benefits. And an anti-Semitic incident at a Barstool sports bar in Philadelphia leads the founder of the company, Dave Portnoy, to try to teach the culprits a lesson by sending them to Auschwitz, a concentration camp in Europe. But Moshe, the story does not end there.
So many twists and turns here over 48 hours, Jill. It now appears the trip is off, at least based on this taping late on Monday night. We'll explain what we know, how we got there, and frankly, I was going to say what comes next, but we have no idea what's going to come next.
You couldn't make this one up.
You couldn't make this one up. It is a very serious story, but it's something.
Moshe has on the same history.
Speaking of disasters near Philadelphia, Jill, we'll tell you about the Hindenburg.
Okay. All right, an update on a story we brought to you yesterday that continues to wreak havoc for some American travelers. Air traffic control staffing issues continue to cause major delays at Newark Liberty International Airport. That's one of the three major airports that serves the New York City area. At least 360 flights were delayed and at least another 160 flights canceled at Newark on Monday alone. Thousands of flights at Newark have been delayed and hundreds more canceled in the last week. So the airport has been slammed with a perfect storm, a shortage of air traffic controllers, runaway construction, technology failures, and weather problems. Just one of those, Moshe, could cause a major headache. And if that is not bad enough, this week travelers can also expect long TSA lines as real ID requirements finally go into effect after years of delays. Real IDs actually stem from the aftermath of the September 11th attacks when authorities wanted to beef up airport security. But the enforcement of these IDs has been delayed so many times. So Wednesday is finally the day that those IDs will be needed to board a commercial flight in the United States, unless you have a passport.
Passport or military ID, effectively a real ID, is a ramped up state IDs that we were calling for after 9/11 due to the fact that it was easy to fabricate them. So going to real ID across the states has been a thing here for 20 plus years. They keep delaying it. Effectively, if you have a real ID if it has a little star in the upper right corner, but it's different in various states. In California, it's a yellow bear in the corner. So Google whether you have a real ID. You probably know by now. But if you don't know, again, the deadline is tomorrow. So you could expect lines, not just Newark Airport, but all airports as people freak out that they don't have real ID. I mean, I've heard from people, Jill, who are like, I consider myself an informed news consumer, and I had no idea because they just kept pushing this back, including, during COVID when it was supposed to go into effect then.
Agreed. I never bothered to get my real ID because I just assumed that this was never going to happen. And I also have a passport, so I could travel technically, but I guess I should probably get one.
Yeah, you could in perpetuity use a passport. People have asked me about that. As a guy without a purse, like I don't want to keep a passport in my pocket, and it's not convenient to travel with a passport, as far as I'm concerned, domestically. But in the meantime, again, if you're one of 50% of Americans who have a passport, but I think there's probably a pretty good Venn diagram overlap, Jill, of people who didn't get real ID and people who don't have passports. It's like those people who show up in the TSA line, and the joke is that there's like the regular TSA, then there's TSA pre-check, then there's clear. But many people have said that there should be a line for like first day on Earth people.
Right.
Like
do I have to take my shoes off?
First day
what
on
do
Earth
I do
people.
with my
Like
phone?
what happens at an airport? There's bags. I have to. What do you mean I have to go to the metal detector? Anyway, we digress. So just beware of that. If you're a last second person like I am when you travel on your own without kids, did you just try to get to the airport the last possible second? This is probably not the week to do that, if ever. And so that's at all airports. But back to the airport in question here, Newark. These delays and cancellations at Newark Airport just seem to get worse here. And it's not just flying into Newark or flying out of Newark. There's a domino effect. If your plane is coming from Newark and then was set to say go Newark, Houston, and Houston, Denver, or whatever, there's an issue. It is United's big East Coast hub. So especially if you're a United passenger, just beware out there that there could be some delays or potential cancellations in store for you because it's not clear when this is going to end. Now, Joel, what we did learn on Monday night is what led to this new acute shortage at Newark. Initial revelations via Bloomberg News and CNN that there was an incident last Monday, April 28th, at Newark Airport that lasted up to 90 seconds where they lost all communication with planes. Again, I repeat, the air traffic controllers at Newark International Airport lost all communication and radar for at least 90 seconds. It has led 5 traumatized workers, air traffic controllers, to now go on special government 45-day leave for traumatic situations to recover from stress here. This is actually something I had gotten a message about on Instagram saying report on the radar going out. And I've been trying to confirm this, couldn't get it confirmed with authorities. Finally, it appears people are talking about this because, again, we've known for a very long time that there's been an air traffic controller shortage nationally at nearly every airport. But this is sort of next level. We got the statement from United Airlines yesterday where the CEO said that 20% of air traffic controllers who were there were put on leave. We just didn't know why. Now we know that that's 5 people, and that's because of a radar outage. Now, just to put this into context, There are about 77 flights managed every hour at Newark Airport that are either going in or going out. So effectively, every 60 seconds, you have 1 to 2 flights coming in and going out. This is a 90-second outage. And I can only imagine the stress that these air traffic controllers already under an immense amount of stress, what this radar outage meant here. Jill, I spoke to a friend of the pod, longtime friend of mine, aviation reporter Peter Greenberg, yesterday, and he's effectively plugged into everything that's happening in the industry. And I was like, listen, the FAA says they're going to hire more air traffic controllers. Like, what do you make of all of this? Here's a bit of what he said.
They've announced they're hiring all these new controllers, and everybody thinks, oh, that solved the problem. Not even close. The learning curve to be a controller means you're going to be an apprentice for at least 18 months to 2 years before they ever let you sit at a panel for yourself.
So that's Greenberg there saying that even if they hire someone today, the vast majority of them, by the way, don't make it through courses. There's a lot of requirements. It's a very stressful job. Even then, it's going to take a while before you get up to full staffing. Now, for the controllers who are still on the job, it's not just the lack of controllers, it's also the technology that they're using. Some of it from the 1970s, some of it not even being built anymore, not being replaced anymore. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has said the technology is so old, they're still using floppy disks as air traffic controllers, and he has pledged to implement new air traffic control facilities around the country. And so that's just the latest issue here. So antiquated technology is certainly something that's going to receive even more attention given the revelations I just told you about, that the radar, the communications went out for a major air traffic control tower, the second busiest in the New York area. And they're constantly managing things alongside LaGuardia, alongside JFK, alongside Philly, just already challenging with their old technology, and now an outage here. Hopefully this prioritizes the urgency in Washington to get something done here, install new technology. The fact that, again, we're still running on still floppy disks, and now we had this outage at Newark, a major issue. As for how long this lasts, that's unclear. I mentioned they're on 45-day leave, so 6 weeks or so. And one of the issues you have with air traffic controllers is it's a very specialized profession. You can't just hire people off the street and have them come in and fill in the blanks. And on top of that, you already have most airports in the country already have their own shortage of air traffic controllers. So you can't just transfer people from another airport to Newark. I imagine they'll look into this given how important Newark Airport is and how many flights they handle. But the deal is, for the foreseeable future, if you play out this 45-day trauma leave, and even assuming that all 5 of these workers come back, that still puts us towards the end of June, early July, just before July 4th here, as far as Newark Airport is concerned. But the important thing to mention, again, is this is not a 2025 issue. This is not a 2015 issue. This is not a 2005 issue. This goes back a very long time. That's something I talked about with Greenberg yesterday as well. He's like, Moshe, like, it's not just this administration or the last administration. This goes back to the Reagan administration that we've had a major issue here with air traffic controllers. Congress hasn't prioritized it. Several presidents now have not prioritized it, going back 40 years. And so really, you're starting to see the real cracks in the system, as Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, has put it here. And so already you had air traffic controllers at most airports working 6-day weeks, 10-hour days, no vacation time allowed. And then you had that traumatic event there at Newark Airport for some of those employees. And so this is a major issue. Talking again, referencing Greenberg, he's like, listen, they can spend the money to get some new tech in there immediately. In Europe, they're using some newer technology. But as far as getting up to full air traffic control staffing, that's going to take a while. So be aware as you plan your summer travel.
Canceling flights, booking a rental car.
though I will say this, because, and this is something I reinforced to all of you as we do aviation stories, 45,000 planes in America yesterday, commercial flights, took off and landed safely yesterday. So with these warnings, the air traffic controllers that are there are doing an incredible job. And so on a daily basis, 45,000 planes land and take off here in America. And that was the case again on Monday.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the Israeli Security Cabinet approved plans in the last 24 hours to escalate its military campaign in Gaza and shift its tactics to focus on occupying territory rather than just operating specific raids inside of Gaza. That had been the strategy for the past year. But the Israeli government now planning to take control of most of the Gaza Strip again, unless Hamas cuts a deal immediately and frees the remaining Israeli hostages. after nearly 19 months in captivity. The Israeli Defense Forces chief of staff said the plan would allow Israel to further decimate the Hamas terrorist group that still governs parts of Gaza and maintains some military capabilities after nearly 2 years of war. The Israeli government says the threat of the occupation and then the eventual takeover itself will help to bring home hostages who remain in Gaza. But critics say that this expanded campaign actually could put the 59 hostages at more risk. And those critics, by the way, include a number of the families of the hostages. At this point, it's believed that only about a third of those 59 hostages are still alive. These expanded operations will require more ground troops to seize and occupy territory. So Israel also plans to mobilize tens of thousands of reservists.
Yeah, this is a controversial plan inside Israel. You mentioned some of the hostage families. They are saying inside Israel that this is the prioritization of territory over the hostages. Again, it's been 19 months since October 7th of 2023 when these hostages were taken. But as far as the government's concerned, nothing else has pushed Hamas to cut the deal here that they're hoping to cut to bring these folks home. So their belief is that the pressure here that they would impose, the threat of going in, and then the eventual retaking of nearly all of Gaza will finally put the screws into Hamas to the point that they will force Hamas's hand here and finally end the war and push them out of power. Remarkably, the terrorist group continues to remain in power, continues to have some military capability in order to fight back there, even after 19 months of war here. An Israeli official told the Times of Israel yesterday that Israel's trying to leverage also the fact that President Trump will be in the region. He heads there late next week. He will be going to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, he is not planning to head to Israel, but anything can happen. But between Trump in the region, a mass call-up of reservists, the threat of a complete reoccupation of the Gaza Strip, they're hoping that that'll lead what's left of Hamas leadership to be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll cut a deal with you at this point. A reminder that deal, it would basically be a continuation of the previous ceasefire deal that would involve the release of about 8 to 10 hostages in return for a 45 to 60-day ceasefire, and then so on and so forth. Hamas very much wants a comprehensive deal and end to the war, but they also want to be able to remain in power there. And that is among the gaps that you have in the two sides here. Now, the Israelis, the Americans that we speak to, admit that this deal has gone nowhere. For months here. Trump isn't really even playing an active role in the deal anymore. He's moved on to Iran. He's moved on to Russia and Ukraine. And so there's much less focus right now on a deal here. And the deal stands, which is a continuation of the previous ceasefire that went into effect when Trump took office in January. So we'll see what comes of it. Trump did reinforce the Israeli plan here in comments in the Oval Office yesterday, saying, they got to do what they got to do, that the Israelis here are going to take back the Gaza Strip, also deal with all humanitarian aid distribution. The accusation has been leveled against Hamas, and there's a lot of videos showing this of Hamas and various groups. They're stealing the humanitarian aid as it comes in, and then in some cases actually trying to then sell that free aid to the Palestinian people. It's been a completely chaotic situation there in terms of getting aid to folks. The Israelis, the Americans have cut out UNRWA, the UN agency, very controversial agency where some leadership has links to Hamas. They cut them out for a while. Nonetheless, not surprisingly here, humanitarian groups, the UN, condemning this Israeli plan, saying it'll only make things worse in a very dire situation in Gaza. More than 1 million people displaced, many of them living in tented communities now going more than a year and a half. As far as the Israelis are concerned, they've been saying for a year and a half, Hamas end this war, give back the hostages, and this whole thing will end. And it's leading to divisions within Palestinian society, too, where you've seen protests in recent months against Hamas. You've also seen the Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Authority leadership over in the West Bank, the separate area the Palestinians control, say that Hamas, be done with this already. You are destroying Gaza even further. You're hurting people. Just end the war, give back the hostages, be done with this. So as far as Israel is concerned, that still hasn't worked. So they are now threatening to go in there. We'll see what comes of it.
Meanwhile, there's another front that we're watching. Over the weekend, Yemen's Houthi rebels launched a missile that fell near Israel's Ben Gurion airport, injuring 6 people and disrupting air traffic. Israel tried to intercept the missile but failed, which is obviously a big failure for Israel's missile defense systems. There was also a U.S. anti-missile system that failed as well. A number of international airlines have canceled their flights into and out of Israel because of the attack.
Yeah, those systems have been pretty effective over the course of the past year and a half, but they are not foolproof. They're not 100%. And that's what you saw there. This could have been a really bad situation. This fell within the vicinity of the airport. And that's why there's a number of international airlines right now that are like, yeah, we're canceling our flights in and out of Israel. For now, the Israeli national airline El Al continues to fly. As for the retaliation here, the Israeli Air Force on Monday evening carried out strikes all the way in Yemen. That's about 2,000 kilometers from Israel. It entailed about 20 fighter jets from Israel that targeted Houthi infrastructure as well as a concrete factory. The Israelis say that that factory was an important economic resource for the Houthis. It helped manufacture concrete for use in the building of tunnels, other military infrastructure, and believe that it will be a major blow to the regime's economy and military buildup. A reminder, in Yemen, the Houthis basically controlled most of the country, but not all of the country. And despite Hezbollah being decimated here in recent months, Hamas being decimated, the Houthis continue to preserve this ability to launch missiles all the way at Israel. The U.S. has been bombing Yemen a lot in recent weeks, so now here are the Israelis, and we'll see what comes next there, but the Houthis vow to continue their assault here.
Time for the speed read from NBC News. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial began yesterday with jury selection in New York City. Diddy is accused of helming a racketeering conspiracy that coerced both men and women, including his ex-girlfriend, the singer Cassie, into days-long drug-fueled sex performances that Combs referred to as, quote, freak-offs. Jurors are expected to be grilled on their views of the hip-hop industry, drug use, and people who engage in sexual relations with multiple partners. They'll also be asked about their experiences related to domestic abuse. Combs faces 5 counts. If convicted on all, he could face life in prison. His lawyers are expected to argue that his accusers were longtime girlfriends and that these encounters were consensual. He has been in custody since his arrest last year. He has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. The trial is expected to last 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, this will be closely followed, but a reminder, this is a federal trial, which means no cameras in the courtroom, which means you'll have to just kind of deal with those like court sketches and reporting out from the reporters who are actually attending the trial. Jill, I'm going to try to get there for a day just to kind of get the sense of the trial down there in Lower Manhattan. So I will report back when that happens here in the coming weeks. I think you got to stand in line very early to grab one of those seats. But it's always interesting to be in the courtroom for these types of trials. Right now, this case is expected to revolve around 4 alleged victims here, all expected to testify, including Cassie, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who you mentioned. You might remember that hotel surveillance video, that horrendous video that showed Combs dragging her down a hallway, kicking her. The judge has ruled that that video can be shown during the trial and that jurors will not be disqualified if they've already seen the video, because that would actually disqualify too many people because that thing has been out there and seen hundreds of millions of times at this point. That's always one of the tricky things with jury selection for such high-profile cases. Someone like Diddy, who's been around and in the public lens now for a number of decades. There are reportedly about 150 people being considered for the jury here. They have to answer questions and speak one by one with the judge. We're already getting a sense of some of the people being considered for the jury and some of the people that are being removed. One was the chief marketing officer for Simon & Schuster, which apparently is publishing a book about accusations against him. Diddy's lawyers apparently tried to remove another potential juror who works at HBO because the media company recently released a documentary called The Fall of Diddy, even though that woman didn't work on the film, and the judge overruled that attempt. A major issue is whether potential jurors are biased because they or their loved ones are sexual assault survivors. Now, ultimately, jurors won't be excused because of a number of these reasons, but they will be excused if a judge believes that because of these reasons, they are unfit or unable to be impartial. So they're hoping to lock in this jury here this week and then have opening statements start next Monday.
From USA Today, President Trump called for a 100% tariff on movies produced overseas in a Truth Social post Sunday night, confounding studio executives and critics about what this could mean for the heavily globalized film industry. Over the weekend, Trump posted on social media that he was authorizing the Commerce Department to begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on all movies produced in foreign countries. But on Monday, the White House issued a statement slow walking things, saying, quote, no final decisions on foreign film tariffs have been made. In his Truth Social post, Trump suggested other countries are using incentives to encourage filmmakers to make their movies there, which he says is devastating the economy in Hollywood.
So the New York Times reports last night that this actually came out of a meeting Trump had with Jon Voight, who's a buddy, one of the buddies Trump has in Hollywood. You might know Jon Voight for his acting or the fact that he is Angelina Jolie's father, Jill.
Yes, remarkably.
So anyway, a lot of questions here. Apparently they had a meeting, and like Voight has been saying, we got to really increase domestic production here. That somehow got him to the 100% tariff on all foreign films. But a lot of questions here. What kinds of movies are we talking about? Would they only apply to movies receiving tax incentives from foreign countries? What about foreign films? What about post-production visual effects being done in a foreign country? Just a lot of questions here. That's why a lot of Hollywood executives are like, we're all about increasing domestic production, but like, I don't know about a 100% tariffs that he's proposing here. At the end of the day, though, there is a larger issue here, which is that a number of studios have been moving production abroad as it's become more expensive to produce films here. There are a number of countries that have a bunch of really incredible tax incentives to attract Hollywood productions to be filmed in their countries. A lot of filming, Jill, happens up in Canada, a lot in Europe. Australia and New Zealand have also become huge hubs for filming. Jill, I was in Ouarzazate, Morocco a few years ago, which is also a film hub, and they've increased production there as well. Basically, anything in the Middle East, typically for safety purposes, is shot in Morocco. So whenever they're depicting another part of the Middle East, typically it's Morocco, and they have a whole production hub there. So we'll see what comes of it. But I imagine there's a lot of people in Hollywood hoping that they can increase production here again. But whether tariffs are the answer is the big question.
Now to another relatively surprising political story. This from ABC News, a discussion of reopening the infamous Alcatraz prison. President Trump on Sunday said that he would order the government to rebuild and reopen Alcatraz, a former prison on a small island off the coast of San Francisco. It once housed some of the most dangerous criminals in the country. We're talking Al Capone, James Whitey Bulger. The Bureau of Prisons is assessing the viability of reopening Alcatraz after Trump said he wanted to rebuild and expand the infamous former prison. It has been closed, by the way, for over half a century. Trump wants it to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. Alcatraz opened in 1934 and was advertised as America's most secure prison. That's because of its location on an island surrounded by strong currents and frigid waters.
The Rock. It's held some of America's most notorious criminals, both real and imagined there in that film. You mentioned Al Capone. Jill, it was closed in 1963 because effectively it was 3 times more expensive to operate than any other federal prison in the country. You have to bring food, fuel, everything in by boat. And so effectively they closed it in the 60s. It became a national park in the 70s. Today, for you and others, it's a tourist destination. As you mentioned, Jill, somehow I've never gotten there despite all my trips to the Bay Area, but I would like to get there before it becomes a prison again. That seems like a bad way to go. I'd like, while it's still a museum, it is visited by about 1.5 million people a year. Nancy Pelosi, by the way, who represents parts of San Francisco, it includes Alcatraz Island. She replied saying simply, the president's proposal is not a serious one. Jill, some historians who are familiar with Alcatraz are chiming in here, saying that effectively you would need to tear down the entire facility, build a new prison from the ground up. You would need new piping to go into the island for running water, sewage treatment, electricity, fixes, because it turns out that building a prison in the 1930s, shutting it down for 60 years as a museum, is going to take some work here. So most folks chiming in here see this as pretty unrealistic, despite the president's post there on social media over the weekend.
Do you think he was watching the movie? Like, where would that have even come from? It feels like he just kind of woke up and was like, Alcatraz. Let's bring that back.
Jill, I don't know if you watched The Rock recently or any other film about Alcatraz, but, he did extensively always mention Hannibal Lecter on the campaign trail. So we do know that, he is a fan of films of a certain era. So I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, from the New York Times on Monday, the Trump administration restarted forced collections on federal student loans in default. With these collections back on, pandemic-era student loan relief is officially over. President Trump paused federal student loan payments in March of 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic raged to provide economic relief for borrowers who lost jobs as a result of COVID-related shutdowns. The Biden administration extended that freeze 3 times before telling borrowers that they did have to start paying on their student loans again in October of 2023. But the repayment rules were relaxed and borrowers were not penalized for falling behind on payments. Now that is over and forced collections have resumed, meaning borrowers' tax refunds can be withheld and applied to their debt.
So this applies to more than 5 million people. Jill, another 5 to 10 million are close to default here. So this is pretty significant. But as far as the White House is concerned, they're like, listen, you're in default of your loans and we will collect just like we did before the pandemic. Well, so what does this mean here? Well, the government can take your entire tax refund and up to 15% of your Social Security benefits or your paycheck if you're in default here of your loans. Now, there are some options, including consolidating the defaulted loan into a new one that pays off the original loan. There are options here. We mentioned this when they announced this last month. You should get in touch with the Department of Education here if you're in default to come to some sort of deal before they start garnering your wages here. But this is one of those last things that went into effect in that early period of COVID that Trump is finally unwinding.
And finally, from Fox News, an anti-Semitic incident at a bar owned by Barstool's sports founder Dave Portnoy has become a national story. Portnoy expressed his anger and disgust after a video circulating on social media showed an anti-Semitic sign displayed at his Philadelphia sports bar. The incident happened at Portnoy's Barstool Sansom Street establishment on Saturday, May 3rd at night. A customer ordered bottle service along with a sign that read, F the Jews. Moshe, it was with the actual 4-letter word, not the word F. So some clubs will bring out drinks with a custom sign, often wishing someone at the table a happy birthday or something of that nature. In this case, their drinks came out with that F the Jews sign. So on Sunday, Portnoy, who's Jewish, talked about the incident from the evening prior in a social media post. He told his followers, I have been shaking. He said he had been trying to track down who was connected to the incident and vowed that there would be consequences. And he said that he was, quote, on a mission to ruin these people.
Just a fair warning here as you play a couple of sound bites throughout this story from Dave Portnoy. He drops a lot of F-bombs. We tried our best to bleep this out, but just a heads up.
I just sat, and for the last 2 hours, I have been on the trail. Trust me, I've been on the trail. You think I'm going to put up with this shit at my bar? So I've been hunting down waitresses, the table who did it, and everything you can fucking name.
Then he posted a second video after speaking with the men, one of whom has been identified as a student at Temple University, and with their families. In that follow-up video, he said he had thought about it and that he would instead pay to, quote, send these kids to Auschwitz. They're going to do a tour of the concentration camps, hopefully learn something.
And maybe, like, their lives aren't ruined and they think twice, and more importantly, other people, like, see, it's not just like words you're throwing around. So to me, that's a fair outcome of this event.
In a subsequent post, Portnoy said the 2 waitresses who were working the table had been fired. He said one was one of the dumbest people that he had ever spoken to. He also said he tracked down one of the 2 people allegedly responsible for ordering the sign, who claimed that he was not anti-Semitic and was crying on the phone. So Moshe, just when we thought a waitress had been fired or 2 waitresses had been fired and that the students who were responsible for this were going to go on this educational trip to Auschwitz, things took another turn.
Things took a turn on Monday night. And Jill, as we wake up on Tuesday morning, there could be more developments here. But ultimately, he posted the latest video, the latest twist here, late on Monday night. He revoked the trip to Auschwitz because he says that he spoke with one of the men. His name is Mo Khan. He's the one who posted the Instagram story where he's laughing and repeating the words on that sign after ordering them. Apparently, Mo Khan tells Portnoy on Monday night, actually, I was just a citizen journalist. I had nothing to do with this. It was not my credit card. The table wasn't under my name. And I have no interest in going to Auschwitz. And frankly, again, I'm a citizen journalist. Portnoy's like, what are you even talking about? You already took responsibility for this whole thing. And apparently this guy repeatedly said, well, talk to my parents, talk to my parents. To which Portnoy said, you're 21 years old. What do you mean talk to your parents? And so this went all back and forth. Apparently, this guy, Mo Khan, has posted other anti-Semitic things in the past. Clearly, there's an issue here. He posted something at what appears to be a bar or a restaurant saying, I'm going to drop money on the floor and figure out who the Jews are here, something to that effect. So it appears here that Portnoy's attempt to try to be the bigger person, try to be educational. He had contact with the Kraft Foundation, Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, who runs a foundation combating anti-Semitism, had tried to coordinate this whole thing. And apparently this guy who showed up at his bar ordered the F the Jew sign, not interested anymore. Here's a bit of Portnoy last night, the latest video.
What do you think? Everyone's stupid? You're a citizen journalist? I'm sorry, man. Tried to throw you a lifeline and make something out of this, and you're now a citizen journalist? You had nothing to do with it? Buddy, you uploaded a video with a sign, the Jews, everyone laughed. You, Mo Khan. You.
So, Jill, the best laid plans, not so much.
So, Moshe, I posted on my Instagram account before this latest twist that the trip was off, asking people what they thought. Did they think that this was the right move? And some mixed thoughts. Personally, I've been to Auschwitz twice, and both trips life-changing for me. I want to mention Nassau County, where I live in New York. They just launched this new program where they offer plea deals to some people charged with hate crimes, where they can go through an educational program. They could visit the local Holocaust Museum here and do community service instead of having to spend time behind bars. And that program has been getting pretty positive feedback. There were some people on my Instagram account anyway who said, forget it, that doesn't work. There need to be, people need to be held accountable. I don't have the answer, but I will just say, as a very proud Jewish woman, that I am just happy to finally see a Jewish celebrity, getting outraged about some of this stuff, because it has been a rough few months. It has been a rough few years. I use my platform as much as I can to speak out against Jew hatred. And it's so frustrating because it feels like, short of, Deborah Messing and David Schwimmer, very few Jews who have big platforms seem even remotely concerned. So whatever he's doing, I have to say, just Dave Portnoy, thank you from me.
Yeah, and by the way, Dave Portnoy, controversial in his own right for a variety of reasons, but in this case, he's standing very firm. And by the way, we should note, for those unfamiliar, Auschwitz, a murder camp in Poland, where more than 1 million Jews were murdered over just a couple years there. It was the largest and deadliest of the Nazi extermination camps. Jill, I'm not sure, though, if this guy Mo, very different Mo than this Mo right here.
Yes, in this case, the Mo is short for Mohammed, not for Moshe.
Right. This guy, if he's laughing, ordering a sign like this, I'm not sure a trip all the way to Poland is going to give him any sort of clarity. But listen, I guess anything is possible. But the trip now is off. He clearly has realized what he has gotten into here, that his name is out there, what this could mean career-wise, all aspects of his life, what it could mean. Though, interestingly, the way Portnoy describes it in this latest video, he's like, dude, at least you can look like you learned something from all of this. Like, why are you now like pretending like you had nothing to do with it? And you were just like, trying to do the world a service by videotaping this and posting on your Instagram story, again, while laughing. That is where we stand here. I know there's a lot of controversy about how you go about dealing with folks who have very ignorant and hateful views. And I think I come down on the whole side of like education is super important, but not sure it's going to work for everybody. That's why you got to get to people as young as possible about the impact of words and how words can lead to actions. In this case, hateful words can lead to hateful and terrible actions down the road.
If the problem is the other option of just throwing someone in jail or giving them worse repercussions, that's definitely going to change their views.
No, not going to change their views. And in this case, he did nothing illegal, right? Like, sadly, that's hate speech is free speech in many cases, unless he was threatening violence. And so ultimately, there's not really much to be done besides making someone an outcast. But typically making someone an outcast drives them further away. Whereas the philosophy is, if you educate them and embrace them, you could hopefully convert some people, not religiously, but philosophically. Anyway, we will continue to monitor these. We're going to continue to develop because let me tell you something. David Portnoy is not a happy camper right now.
No.
He has a very large platform.
And he also does not mince words.
Well, there's one word that he likes the best, and it starts with F. And if you watch his Instagram videos with the volume up, just fair warning. All right, now time for On This Day in History. We begin in 1626, Jill, on this little island of Manhattan that I am recording from right now. Peter Minuit, a Dutch settler at the time, according to legend, bought Manhattan Island from the natives for goods worth $24. This, of course, was the home of the Lenape people for a very long time, going very many centuries back. All right, on this day in 1937, the hydrogen-filled German airship, the Hindenburg, caught fire and crashed while attempting to dock in Lakehurst, New Jersey. 35 people on board were killed, along with the crewmen on the ground. From one technological disaster to one breakthrough, on this day in 1994, the channel between England and the European continent officially opened. 3 tubes, 23 miles of it is underwater. On this day in 1998, Steve Jobs introduced the first iMac personal computer that became hugely successful, helped him revive the company. Remember, he'd helped found the company, left the company. He then comes back to the company, streamlines the place, and the iMac on this day in history was his first big announcement. Within a decade, he would also give us the iPod and the iPhone, along with iTunes, a remarkable second stint there for Steve Jobs at Apple. And we'll end here with a bit of pop culture history. On this day in 2004, the final episode of Friends aired, was watched by more than 52 million viewers. Fun fact is the 5th most watched television finale of all time, behind the following: Seinfeld 4, Fugitive, the TV show, this is way back when, number 3, Cheers is 2, and MASH, still the highest rated TV finale of all time.
Moshe, I think I would have gotten about 3 of the 4.
Fugitive always messes people up.
Fugitive is the one where you're like, there was a TV show, Fugitive.
way before the movie, there was a TV show, and apparently a lot of people watched it. We end here with our 90s music mention of the day on this day in history. Backstreet Boys released their self-titled debut album.
All right, well, we obviously cannot leave a Mo News podcast without some sort of 90s musical reference. So thank you guys for listening to the Mo News podcast. If you like what you hear, share this with your friends. It helps us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
Yeah, to quote a song from that first album, Jill, quit playing games with our heart. We would love a review over in the Apple Store.
Okay, that's the quote.
That's the quote. Quit playing games with my... Yeah.
Maybe a stretch.
It's a stretch. It's totally a stretch. Yeah,
it's okay.
I know.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.